Integrity is the key word to Mademoiselle Boulanger's teaching. Integrity, honesty, and humility. The work that you produced, the work that you manufactured through your inspiration, perhaps, but also a lot through the know-how that you are taught how to apply with consistent and complete concentration, the long-term focused concentration on every detail from the chosen note to the big line, la grande ligne. The sequences of partimenti in 4 parts being recorded on a cassette of the technology of the day, where you would keep playing through, and not by autopilot, but with your consciousness and your awareness of each modulation, of each pattern, of each voice leading. It is not just playing music or writing music with your talent and your intuition. Of course, these are given, if I may say so, and in her eyes given by God. But it was more like invitation for a monarchical life of inner world experience of honesty, trying to go beyond what you've received. And you will never tire until you find the right ending of a sentence in music, the right articulation of an interpretation. And she didn't tell you when it was right. She brought you to organize your own field of investigation so that you can define and therefore you can pursue. And there is a way to say that it's an endless pursuit. And it wasn't mindless, it was very meaningful, because it wasn't about imitation, star system, being under some admiration where it's a fan club of the teacher, and there was not such a thing. And she wouldn't buy that. No, she wouldn't. She praised hard work over easy effect. She praised honesty about being who you are instead of trying to act something to fit a certain style or genre or fashion of the moment. That is absolutely true. I can attest to that. I was there till the last day. She kept calling through her housekeeper, Giuseppe, my mother, when and I was a teenager at school at that point, when Mademoiselle, as he used to call her since he was Italian, La Signorina, is ready for a lesson for Emile. And I would quit school and run across these few blocks and arrive at Rue Balu in her apartment and start working, even if she could gather her failing health's attention to continue this transmission. And everything was planned for me. That was the respect for the chosen disciple in terms of which score to sight read with my name on a page that I had to discover, analyze, organize, write about, describe. She encouraged a lot my creativity because I couldn't not be creative, but she did not discourage it by knowledge of the rules of the grammar. It was more like the more you learn how to harness your creativity, the more your creativity grows. And I realized that very quickly, because the first real concept, and that is the word that I think that she transmitted me as soon as I arrived age 7, 8 with her to study there in Paris when she was already in her early 80s. It was a difference for the rules of harmony book between forbidden and tolerated. Now, that is a very subtle concept to teach a 7, 8-year-old, regardless the fact that I was a child prodigy in the sense of a certain intuitive intelligence about music guessing. But this is something way more intellectual and possibly philosophical. How to deal with all these rules in order to understand their purpose, as if those ties that free ultimately, once you understand the purpose of the ties. For instance, avoidance of parallelism, fifths or octaves, brings you to think about voice leading, how to organize contrary motion, and how to organize your voices so that every inner voice is as beautifully designed in its melodic gesture than the melodic one on a given root bass line. And this sense of nothing is hidden, everything is more than beautiful, everything is meaningful. Everything has to be well done in the sense of a good craftsman's honest work. And she didn't put in balance artistry with craftsmanship when she said that some of the rules teach you how to develop your creativity, therefore you understand their purpose by breaking them. That was philosophically very powerful when she was saying tolerate it. Tolerate it is accepted within a context. In the context of my own creativity, I wrote parallel fifths. And in the same lesson, I had to avoid them in the harmony 4-part resolution of a given figured bass line. And that is so amazingly important. Same thing with contrapoint. It was not stylistically assigned to be in a certain century of writing style. Her teaching, of course, the Dubois book for harmony, the Gédal's book for, or treatise for contrapoint, were very important to her. But they were more like departure points rather than arrival points of a learning streak. It was more about creating your own creative solutions, like in the harmonic progressions of the pages 68 of the Dubois book. And the purpose was to find always the most creative canonic ways of realizing the 4-part, not just the factual chordal progression with the minimal amount of avoidance of mistakes. I think that to reduce Mademoiselle Boulanger's teaching only to her insistence on that kind of musical grammar knowledge is not enough, not true. I can tell you, I was there. She was so enthusing. I cannot tell you, every morning I woke up, no matter how tough, demanding, and sometimes annoying her detailed demands in lesson were, it was as if she cleansed inside you all what you are trying to figure out with honesty and without covering up in any kind of feel-good attitude, nor by contrast with a ruthless very harsh teaching attitude, as some teachers like to be remembered by, because they need to be feared. She was not feared because she was scaring us. She was feared in a way because she scared in us what we could have done if we didn't, pay less attention, do less well. In fact, she made us feel responsible for ourselves. As she used to say, you know what you will do, you know how you will do it. And she was not there to scare us. She was there to make sure that we understand that when it's not there, it's not there. It's not right, it's not right. It's not the right note, it's not the right note. Learned, composed, or discovered in a sight reading. It was very important to reach this moment where you realized, oh my God, she really believes in me. and not by touchy-feely, and nor by being super harsh for the sake of it and scare you. No, there was no tactics in that. I observed her teaching of others. Some cried, some gave up, some tried to stay and ended up by leaving since they were discouraged, finding perhaps that her expectation was so universal from the detail to the whole that they didn't have enough of a lifetime to do that, and they had their life, they were already young adults, to pursue. I was a child, so I grew up there with the time it takes to, the time to time, given to the time so that I can, through daily hard work, not rush the blossoming of the elements as they appeared. And I must say that this enthused feeling was jubilant. I would describe Mademoiselle Boulanger's teaching as jubilation. Of course, very demanding, reading in the clef, preparing the attentive, this and that. All these elements put together might be just a shopping list of expectations, but ultimately it was like being next to somebody so intelligent and so benevolent for you to be your best. But she wouldn't help you become your best. She would help you learn to yourself how to do it. And of course, you had to have a lot of character to support and sustain such cruel mirror of your own shortcomings, because it's so easy to excuse oneself for those shortcomings. But she was, in a way, she was the mirror of our own what we wanted to become. And she was not a deforming mirror that would encourage when there was no need to. She wouldn't discourage either. That's why she was so jubilant to be around. This kind of rigor and enthusiasm at the same time. It's almost, I can already, by trying to evoke it here for you 40 years later after her passing, it seems like she's never passed, because her enthused service to the muse, love for the music, connection to the mystery of beauty, musical beauty, not trying to pontificate over the piece, that's why it's beautiful or meaningful or how. No, it was every day a great lesson of true humility that we had by being her student. We had to earn her respect for our work process. And I find that because she did not teach a specific trade, I was a pianist, so I played a lot of the reductions that we're trying to sing as a choir of the orchestra parts. I was trained to read the clef, so I could read things, but mostly it was like a team group, the classes that she carried on in her apartment when she was very old and outside of teaching institutions. And if it took 2 hours to speak about, I don't know, an appoggiatura of an upbeat and a delayed resolution and what it implies, and the inner beauties of what the music itself is saying without to connect it to human feelings in terms of harmonic modulations or all kinds of devices that create a closeness to the human experience, but to return it to the music language itself, which doesn't need to be paraphrased or explained. It has to be just served. And I think that in today's world, where people are very rushed to show off the little skills they acquire, because the music schools in the world create a big number of professionals who can play very well this or that instrument before they can ever blossom as musicians, as understanding the purpose of how they organize that musical sentence other than imitating it on the numerous platforms from which they can take a template to imitate, and that is good too, but it shouldn't be all. It should be something that comes from inside. And how do you harness that? How do you bring that? Is to respect the alterity, to respect the other for who he and she is when they come to her. And of course, thousands came to her for a day, for a week, for a month, for a summer, or perhaps for a year, for how much they could stay financially and in their path of their own lives, with their own expectations of their own lives. In their different seasons of their lives, there would be already teachers coming to learn how to better teach, and some wanted to become teachers. So at any level, it was a mirror of your own realizations or shortcomings that you came to find by her. And she didn't tire teaching. She didn't tire telling them the reality of the truth without to embellish it and without to scare them. When she was discouraging, it wasn't with a, shiny sentence of affect, some kind of belittling. She was so respectful of everybody. And I remember so clearly that, because I was thinking what an incredible patience she has with people who can hardly do the quarter of the seventh of the eighth of what she was expecting them to be able to do. But she was very, very, very patient. When she saw that they were struggling with their intellect to connect the dots, why these harmonies function together with this voice leading, etc., why this pulse goes with this, why this composer, well, this is, they did in the thought process of the composer, then understand or not, but try to immerse. And when she saw the effort, she, I think, really appreciated the effort. While I was there for the long run, thanks to my parents accepting her teaching me. And what she did, very few, probably to the fingers of one hand, were the chosen disciples for whom she gave everything in terms of generous, free lessons with a lot of expectation. They might have been free, but at the same time, they were charged with expectations. And the more she expected, the more you felt that you are worth it. Even if you felt you're worthless because you can never reach the expectation. So it's a sort of a two-way elevator where you climb on it, it rising you, and you drop and you start again. And it's like Sisyphus all over again every day. But you knew she believed in you, and then you were even more enthused when you felt between the words that something you did managed to be to her expectation. Not beyond, but it's already not bad. Especially when you know that she was always close to Ravel, Stravinsky, Fauré, at different levels of her personal connections and artistic and musical with them. And so there is no way that she would bend her appreciation unless she really had it for you. And if she didn't either. But it wasn't for belittling purposes. It was to rise you to the best you can be. So today, of course, because of the times that are different with so many schools and so many degrees and so many short-term goals, people have to graduate, go to another level of studying, and in fact, they go from a degree to another before they even intellectually armed for the next degree, let less the teaching position. And then it seems like in It's like headless chicken running around. Everybody thinks with a little skill they will already dominate the world with attitude and a certain sense of superiority. It's probably because they're not given the time to develop, to understand, to immerse themselves in the art as well as in their craftsmanship, the craft and the art at the same time. And I find that this race to fame and technologically able to edit everything reaches a point where you're not really teaching yourself or even are taught so much integrity about achieving it through your own way. You realize, you receive, you get, you understand, but ultimately you accomplish yourself if you can and when you can and as long as it takes. I think that was probably the most important lesson I learned of studying with her was you're not done until you really are done. And there's no shortcut. There is no easy solution to cover up. Even if your talent allows to fake. Oh, what a great lesson of life that was to be studying with her. Such high demands and such enthused jubilation. Just telling you all this today makes me go back in my daydreams as if I was back then, there, while with you here.